Greetings, everyone. It is I, Dracovin, and welcome once again, diving into the world of Golarion. Are you ready to learn about the Pathfinder role-playing games world? I hope you are. Join me here at the Dracovin Empire as we dive in again. We're going to be learning about the dead god Aroden today. Yes, it's talking about both an important figure and a god, technically, and someone who's dead. Involves a lot of storylines. It's going to be involving a hell of a lot of storylines. Just it's very important. This is a very technically important topic to a lot of lore. So grab your great swords, get your spellbooks ready, maybe get a nice holy symbol. Not Aroden's, he doesn't really give power anymore. Maybe Iomade, one of his former servants turned god, who's now on her own. So just get ready. We're diving. So, if I'm going to be looking into Aroden myself, where do I go? What kind of places can I look? Other than, looking stuff online, learning about the general divine power and stuff like that, there are some books you can check out to learn all about Aroden. Of course, the campaign setting book from first edition is a very good place to begin your adventures in learning all about this. Excuse me. That tends to be a very good starting location. Then, of course, you can also dive into sorry. The Adventure Path. A Song of the Silver Adventure Path. This is from Hell's Rebels and does involve some things around with him. Generally speaking, I'm using that one, but there are a bunch of adventure paths that deal with some information around Aroden and the results of Aroden's death. So just keep that in mind. Then, of course, over here, we have two books from 2nd edition on the bottom there. There is the GM Core. Hey, a lot of information about how the Age of Lost Omens came to being is in the GM's Core. It involves the death of Aroden. And then, of course, the World Guide, too. The World Guide being a little earlier, but both of them providing a good bit of information. Aroden. So, here's his holy symbol. What was his holy symbol? Who is Aroden? That's a really good question to start out with, because he was human. God of humanity. The god of humanity. A living god. The first god to ascend using the Star Stone. He was also the Last Azlanti. Last of the First, as he was called. He was immortal. He was an Azlanti. He gained godhood in 1 AR. The date system Pathfinder uses, the AR, Absalom Reckoning, is based upon Aroden becoming a god. But remember, humanity still is the most populous species in Golarion. So, of course, when the god of humans ascends to godhood, you're gonna name a calendar after. It's very, BCE, CE, where it originally was for us, There was a lot of prophecy around him, too. He would lead humanity to a golden age on the day of his return. But he died instead. The end of that prophecy, the end of the age of glory that we were supposed to have, has turned into the Age of Lost Omens. That's why, if you would hear about the time period in Pathfinder now, they talk. Now, just a little bit of information on him as a god. His favorite weapon was a longsword. His eye here was his holy symbol. He was in his own domain in Axis. He's lawful neutral. And yeah. There are still some people that worship him, but very few now that he is dead. Now that we know, generally speaking, who he is, who he was, we should talk about his history. And we have to go look back at the man Aroden, as his time from Azlanti, the Azlanti Empire. He was born in the final days of the Empire. According to legend, he was an unveiled blacksmith and a premier swordmaker, and personally wielded many of his swords to defend Azlant from the chaos of the last decades. He was a follower of Akavana, the moon goddess, and Amanzin, the god of magic. A famous creation he had during this time was the Azlanti Diamond, a clear jewel-bladed sword intended to be the weapon of the next Azlanti Emperor. When the then Emperor failed to choose a successor from a pool of unimpressive candidates, he asked Aroden to decide for him. And Aroden just kept the sword. Many believe this decision provoked the Veiled Masters to call down Earthfall to destroy Aslan, but that's just rumors. They'll go through is what really drew down the meteorite to nuke Aslan and everything. The aberrations that were basically trying to, control the world, the Guthu Masters, the alien creatures that were trying to influence the world and control during this time period. That's all the rise of the human empire as a threat to them, and they decided to nuke the entire planet from orbit, because they felt they could probably survive it being aquatic things. Doesn't mean there's not, rumors about it. And just as a note, the Veiled Masters are a Guthu. Sorry. They're a different type of. I keep forgetting that they, I think that's a new course of change. Anyway, Azlanti nuked from the space. Basically, some gods sacrificed themselves. They allowed the world to survive. Azlanti, its entire continent, super nuked. The world went into the Age of Darkness. But, his empire crumbled. His land he came from, gone. Nonetheless, yeah. And technically some of his people survived. They just went to other places, interbred, and so the reason why he's the last Azlanti, he's the last full-blooded one. Keep that in mind. So he led survivors to the colonies in Evastian. He tried to salvage the cultural legacy, especially the magical developments they had. It's unsure how he became immortal. It just somehow, he became immortal, and his contemporaries intermarried with the locals, had children, got old, and died. So, being this very powerful being who had helped lead the remnants of the Empire to safety, and now that they're just, no longer full-blooded Azlanti, the descendants of those people became known as his Titans. Last of the first humans, the last Azlanti. He's the last High Azlanti to die by several thousands of years. After a few centuries, a sect of prophecy-driven Knights of the Ion Star formed a guard of Azlanti, the former guard of Azlanti emperors, declared Aroden the embodiment of the last Azlanti prophesied in Starfall Doctrine. He led an army to the Outer Rifts. During this time, Aroden led an army to the Outer Rifts to kill Abdurgian, a demon lord who had been ravaging the Azlanti colonies for 3 centuries in a quest to eradicate all of the Azlanti descendants. Therefore, Aroden remained in the Great Beyond, building up alliances with otherworldly creatures, exploring alien philosophies, expanding his mortal consciousness and perspective. He returned with a new focus, charting destiny for humankind as a whole. So he left someone trying to protect Azlanti, last of his empire. And after his battles, he came back realizing that they were just one group of humans, and all of humanity needed a voice. So now we get to negative 1524. Aroden goes to Arcady, the notion of Zapotl, whose magic interested him. He spent several years in Jolzapan, working as a farmer and fisherman, and learned from local botanists, earned their trust. He befriended the native adventurers Arazani, and they earned limited access to the sacred Tumbaja Mountains and the Veins of Creation. After completing her research, Arazini invited Aroden to travel across Zapotl and apply her research from who Jaldi to distant communities. For the next several years, they earned a reputation as heroes, and in negative 1505, they returned to Julsapan to report their improvements, repelling an invasion by Last Azlanti warlord Miktul. Following this, they were granted limited access to the mountains and the Kamaru tree that was the source of the veins of creation. Arzani finished her research and parted ways with them. Aroden stayed for his own experiments. Unbeknownst, he placed a fragment of his soul within the tree, giving him the ability to manipulate the veins of creation with ease and greatly expand his power. In negative 1489, 2 years after Arzanti's death, Aroden left Zapata. So he was only there for a little over 35 years. Maybe it was only a friend relationship, but a deep friend relationship with a woman, and the two of them went on great adventures. And Zapata's got issues because he had to put part of his soul in there, and he died. I'm just gonna say. There are a few other miraculous tasks he's known for before he ascended. The most famous of these when he traveled to the settlement of Agorian in Cheliax. He was surrounded by plains of red roses, half of which turned white at his mere presence, and they maintained their coloration for thousands of years thereafter. Now, we must talk about God. As he raises the Star Stone out, for 5,000 years. Earthquake. Aroden traveled to the inner sea. He found the Star Stone. A fragment of what had fallen, what had destroyed his empire, that he was a proud citizen of. He was subjected to testing upon his contact. And he became God. He was the first to pass the test of the Star Stone. His first act was to raise the stone from the water, where he found it, along with the earth, and forming the island of Korthos. He brought forth an entire island in which to place the stone upon. To bring life to this island, he stole 5 life-giving orbs from the Vorian vault in Vask, which he called the Aeon Orbs. See a different episode on me and how that went well for the local people of the Vask. It didn't go well. Aroden, you don't make great decisions sometimes. He thought they could be better used aiding humans than the Zulgoths of Vask. No, it kind of screwed them over. Sorry, Zulgoths. He placed them in each of these Aeon Orbs, as he called them, on mud-brick Aeon Towers, and linked their magic with his own essence, turning the island green, particularly around the towers. And yeah, the last stone he left in Vask was not enough to maintain it. It became a lifeless waste of black sands and radioactive crystals. Yep. Anyway, the Starstone was transferred to its resting place, the Starstone Cathedral, at the center of Absalom, the city he established at the coast of Korthos. So, he's now the god of humanity. Cool. He called on mystics from all over the Inner Sea to join him in Absalom, share their wisdom. Again, he is still a god raised Ascension from a mortal. The first of his kind. Well, I mean, not truly the first, but the first from this Starstone, this first in this more, in quotations, modern age. Mystics arrived from Osirian, Quadri, Taldor, hoping that this god king could honor them and marvel at his accomplishments. Their teachings helped him inform many of the esoteric orders and institutions of learning which survive today in Absalom. Basically, he wanted to bring together almost all the knowledge of humanity. And he tried to do that, in a way. He worked hard to protect and aid humans, while encouraging the rise of his faith, particularly in Taldor, and encouraging the growth of Absalom. He preferred to provide aid at a distance, though. The siege of Absalom in 166, when Archmage next besieged the city, it was at a distance. When necessary, though, he would be active in anything that would be a threat to humanity. and be a probable destruction. He personally fought off invader Vordani Voon during the first siege of Absalom in 23, and centuries later defeated the Wizard King Tar-Baphon in 896. In addition to this, his decree that the island of Aroden, located north of the Isle of Porthos, would be a private refuge for himself and his closest followers, including the Knights of the Aeon Star, the sword mages that accompanied him in his first centuries of divine existence. Still, he had things to do in the multiverse. He had places to go, beings to kill, Descarai to go beat up. So, around the 4th century AR, Aroden basically removed himself from the mundane affairs of Absalom and Golarion. He focused on his divine realm in the Plane of Access. He traveled to Nirvana in 1121, met his old friend Arzani again, now a Tablinian, a type of celestial. And she accepted his offer to serve him as his herald. When Tar-Baphon returned to the world as a lich named the Whispering Tyrant, he didn't interfere, leaving the matter to Arzani with not great results, unfortunately. He needed to be directed at that. The only known appearance we have in more recent centuries was in 4433, when the Keld nation Sargonis fought the avatar of Descarai. He drove him and his followers in the Lake of Mist and Veils. And we do know that prior to his departure to the plains, he had a rabbit familiar named Hameleni has reappeared in Absalom in 4721, just 3 years ago. So, a god's familiar is back. Interesting. He doesn't really know what necessarily happened to her old master. But Aroden died. Yeah. Aroden was humanity's god of culture, innovation, and history. The property of the Starfall Doctrine suggested he would manifest in Cheliax in 4606, marking the Age of Glory. He didn't appear. But prophecy, at that moment, broke. Prophecy which defined Aroden his life, spurred his accomplishments and ambitions, stopped functioning. It doesn't mean a prophecy might still not tell something, but rather than tell the true what is going to happen. It can only tell a possibility. You don't know for sure if that prophecy will work. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It is the age of lost arts. At the appointed hour, 3 weeks of storms and earthquakes, the creation of the Eye of Bandago, the flooding of the nations of Lyrican and Yamas on Gurun's west coast, all happened. When the weather finally broke, after those 3 weeks, the clerics of Aroden realized something was wrong. They could not reach their god. And with divine mandate gone, the king of Cheliax fell into illegitimacy, which led to civil war, into the Cheliax we know today. And with the death of Aroden, the Aeon Towers have begun to slowly fade. Their energies faded. What happened? No one truly knows. His clerics no longer receive spells. Many theories tell of how he could have died. A battle with Roviga or Asmodeus. A journey beyond the outer spheres. The reincarnation to a mortal man to save humanity. What gods do know his fate, and Pharasma, have not revealed it to mortals. Pharasma may know, the ancient goddess of death, but she will not tell. It is not her business. Now, let's talk about Aroden, his servants, his domain, his appearance, the way he would appear to mortals a little bit with one of his servants, a servant of Aroden. He was on Axis, the massive city designed to be elidistic utopia, and encouraged his followers to replicate. Following his death, it was not absorbed by Axis and became known as the Empty Court, a wasteland contested by numerous parties, particularly his farmer follower, Milani. Milani being represented here. See, there she is, former follower, a minor goddess known as the Everbloom, who worked with Aroden. Milani has rebuilt part of the Empty Court into the refugees of the Red Rose, her second divine realm. The Academics have declared the Empty Court a region distinct from Axis until someone wholly claims it. As for appearances, Aroden would walk the world in many disguises. He had 12 he liked in particular: artist, beggar, craftsman, farmer, fisher, hunter, merchant, scholar, shepherd, soldier, tailor, thief. Travelers of West Crown can find these guises carved into stones along the northern wall of Aroden, the long canal in the city's Pregos Spera district. They've also been portrayed in statuary in hidden vaults of Corridor, the building where Imperial Cheliax once governed, as the vaults were formerly used by the Church of Aroden in West. Here's Iomen, former servant, former paladin era, now goddess. The closest thing to someone carrying on his divine mandates. Aroden's strongest allies, especially in his early times, were the deities worshipped in Azlanti. He turned to the Manual of City Building, a religious text of Abadar, for inspiration establishing Taldor and Absalom. He saw art inspired by Shelyn as destiny for the success of civilizations. After the gods he once worshipped, Avacna and Amazon, died in Earthfall, he pointed to them as examples that gods can die, but humanity can persevere. Iori saw Aroden as a friend, who obtained godhood from mortality such as he did, but was greatly troubled by his death. Iori, of course, having achieved divinity differently, but still being once more. He respected Kalin, who took a bet, got drunk, and passed the test of the Starstone. He respected that. It was proof of humanity's ingenuity, luck, and that even a drunkard could do that kind of thing. Kalian was the best of humanity in Aroden's eyes. Lorgaber, the darkest urges of humanity, who became god through the Starstone, was basically the sworn enemy of every Arden. Managed it too, but sort of in a different way. And of course, Iomedan, here. Inspired by her former master through her devotion, and Optimus encountering the dark impulses that accumulated during his millennia-long life. She ascended to godhood, and was his better half in a lot of ways. Even being originally his paladin, his servant, there was still that connection. Of course, he saw Lamashtua, the darkness and chaos lurking in the wilds beyond the perimeter of man and beast, and Urgatha as a reminder of the worst excesses left behind by Aslan. And of course, his clergy have blamed Pharasma for withholding his fate, which had led to some violence in the Inner region, unfortunately. As for his church, it was once the most powerful in the Inner Sea region, influencing almost every aspect of daily life. It has fallen, though, since his death. Many of his clergy moved to worship other deities. Most have actually become clerics of Iomedan, his great servant, one of the few mortals to also complete the test of the Starstone and gain divinity herself. Those few that did stay true to Aroden have been left without divine powers. They mimic cleric abilities with magic items. They preside over crumbling temples, many taken over by other religions. One of the last great accomplishments of his church was launching the First Mendevian Crusade in 4622 to take back Sarcosis from the demons invading the world. Even though the church is no longer a religious institute, it does still have social and political power, even all this time, even after a century after Aroden's death, particularly in Absalom, the city that he not only founded, which he created the founding laws, the writings of which Absalonian jurisprudence is based, and inside the Azlanti Keep, one of their greatest structures. The priests, though, if you would see her wear elaborate, archaic, multi-layered vestments that were popular in Haldor when the center of the church was still located there. Tall hats, helmets are common, as well as things inspired by ancient Azlanti fashions. His text is called The History and Future of Humanity, and the Tome of Memory is also considered an Ardenite religious text. That's Aroden, the living god, the first to ascend with the Starstone, to pave a way for more divinity to come from mortality. It isn't impossible for a mortal to ascend in certain ways, but certainly speaking, the Starstone is probably the easiest, in quotations, way to find divinity. Aroden found this, brought it to the surface. He left it there for others to pass. He gave others a chance to rise to divinity. He saw gods die and humanity flourish. So even when he became a god, he knew he was still honorable. Something that many other deities perhaps don't realize. But that knowledge led him to many of the great acts, the many great things he did. He saw potential in humanity more so than what he had seen in his own home. He wanted to nurture that potential, to bring it to not mimicking what Azlanti is, but to be better than Azlanti. That's what he wanted of humanity. He saw the dark paths that his species could take, his ancestors, and he wanted to help them go their best direction. That's what he tried. His success, mixed bag. But he could only do so much, and there were so many threats and things to take care of and stuff to do in the outer planets. So he tried. And then he died. Maybe we'll never know what happened to Aroden. Who knows if Paizo will reveal what happened. It may just be a mystery better left. But the repercussions of his death will be felt for centuries. It may be millennia before the Age of Lost Omen ends. And where we are, it's nearly a century. But in so many places, in so many ways, we can see the after effects of Aroden. And certainly speaking, he was fallible. Many of his decisions to increase his power, to do everything he did to seek out, some of them have had grievous mistakes. Things that he didn't intend. He always seemingly had the best intentions. He just didn't always make the best decisions. Now, plenty of people out there that have to clean up after it will feel the effects of it. But some of those decisions still are just great. It's a mixed bag. That's the legacy of Aroden. Mixed bag of good and bad decisions that help out not only just humanity, but Golarion in different ways. His effect on Golarion will last. Maybe as many thousands of years as he was. That'll be it for the day, though. I hope you enjoyed learning about Aroden. He's an interesting one. He is a deity that's fun to talk about because he is so very heavily related in actual mortal things. Being born immortal, being a mortal ascended, well, an immortal, but mortal creature, ascended to godhood, and put him in a different position than your average god in the Golarion universe. It made him something different. And yes, for a while, he was more directly involved with the world. But he had to take that step back, because he was a god. He had bigger fish to fry in the life, and he tried his best to do that. He's an interesting character. I do hope you enjoyed today. If you do want to give some more support, remember, a follow over on Twitch, or if over on YouTube, like and subscribe and ring the bell. All those things help. My question today is, what is your experience with either Aroden or the after effects with him in any of your games? Certainly speaking, there are plenty of games you could have an after effect from him. You just have to think of that kind of like connections to Aroden or Aroden-related stuff. If you're doing stuff over by, let's say, the Eye of Abednego, you might have some influence from that. If you're over Lirgin and Yamasa, if you're somewhere in Absalom, you're going to feel some after effects of it. I'm just curious. If you want to check out more stuff, the schedule is usually up on YouTube, Discord, Twitter/X. I try to keep the schedule up there for both YouTube uploads and Twitch streams. Kind of keep to that as best I can. Just preface that life can make things delayed, moved around, etc., etc. Big things I hope you want to shout out are Crimson Queen Wednesdays 8 EST. Check that out. Live play Pathfinder 1st Edition. And then Saturdays at 6, discussing tabletop, talk about news of the week and more. I have social media link below, discord.com/X. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today. I'm going to get going. Until the next time, though, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.